Look at that beautiful background. It looks like me. Not Disney. Not Disney. It looks so much better. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Devil's Advocate for your Champions League preview of FC Copenhagen versus Man United. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Copenhagen versus Man United. We'll see how that one goes. It's me. It's Jonathan. It's Nathan below me. How are we, gents?
Yeah, all good, Reese. Ready to tear up the Champions League all over again, like we do best.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right. What about you, Nathan? How you doing?
Yeah, all good, mate. Not quite as optimistic as Jonathan, but I'm willing to go for it.
We're gonna do that. If anyone is watching any of the Champions League games, just give me some heads up. Just don't give me a heads up on the Milan game because I know Giroud has just scored. So fuck you, PSG. I just wanted to get that one in there. Right, we're gonna dive into this one, lads, because this is quite a turning point game, I think is the best way to say it. So evening to Keen in the chat, who's using the Devil's Advocate podcast channel for obviously live comments. Hello to Alex. He's asked a few questions, some comments. Hello, Julio. Twitter's not calling you, I'm assuming. And hello, John. Good to see you as well, mate. Hope you're doing good. And also, thanks for the kind words for the channel the other day. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but John put up a tweet the other day regarding a topic we're going to talk about later. Funnily enough, obviously John did tag the channel in a kind way, saying that we're not a biased gender driven uh, content creators in that sense. That it's all unbiased, fair as much as we can. So I'm not included in that because I'm very biased. I'm only kidding. I'm not. Lads, before we get into anything in general, I just want to ask. Obviously, I've not seen you since the previous show of the Fulham game. We were, I think, not overly optimistic, but we were quite discursed in that way. Obviously, we had spoken about the Newcastle game. Only one of us was right in terms of predictions. It was Jonathan, because I said we'd win begrudgingly. We got slaughtered instead. But just since then, like, how have you both been regarding like the performance? Obviously, the response against Fulham obviously wasn't the best, but just in general, how have you guys been since then? So either voice can go ahead. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot has changed, really, has it? I mean, I think I said on the preview with yourself last week, Reese, my score prediction was 3-1 against Newcastle, and I was a bit optimistic by giving us that goal, I think, because it was torrid. It really was torrid, and I mean, after that, the only way was up. If you want to describe that performance against Fulham as up, really. So I think anything after that Newcastle and City games was going to be an improvement. But again,
Yeah.
looking at the Fulham game, there was no real sign of anything that had been done constructively in training. There was no real patterns of play. You couldn't look at it and say, right, you can see that they were looking at their defensive shape. There's definitely a structure there they've been working on the last couple of days to rectify the mistakes of the previous two games. It was still another Moments FC win, unfortunately. Look, it was a good goal, and none of us are ever going to be disappointed with an away win in the Premier League, especially the way our form has been. So it was an important 3 points. It was a good clean sheet. I was happy for Onana to get the clean sheet because I thought, again, he was quite impressive, just like he was against Man City. But
Yep.
it's still very, very concerning because by the time Bruno did score the winner, Fulham could have easily been 2 goals up at that point. And like, I know we were screwed a little bit with VAR earlier on the match. We were disallowed a perfectly legitimate goal, in my opinion. But yeah, still just very disjointed. I mean, I know the fans had a banner up to say basically like play like you mean it, and McTominay was talking afterwards as if they'd kind of just really like pled into that and they'd achieve something. They said we saw the banner, we know what it means to the fans. Well, you didn't really. There was no massive real improvement in the performance. The only thing different with the previous two games was that we'd won. And that was basically it. But I don't know what Nathan thinks about what he saw on Saturday.
No, I think that's fair. Nathan, what about yourself, mate?
I'll be honest, I haven't watched the game. I didn't watch the highlights. I saw the result. I saw some of the commentary on Sky Sports app, and I was really disappointed at the comments, the stats, everything. So I just thought I'm not even going to bother. Yeah, it's great. 3 points on the road, especially like I said in the preview to the Fulham game. It's quite a difficult place to go. The fans can really get
Yeah.
behind the team when they're in the trenches, but yeah, it should have been a much more comprehensive victory. But there's 3 points on the road. We'll take it.
I know you said you were doing other things, and to be honest, I've not spoken to anybody about the game, pretty much apart from the likes of Julio and all that, and that was yesterday. But in terms of like you guys, like you're the first two guys I've spoken to regarding the game. I'll be honest, I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, what is going on? And that's probably the biggest question you can ask. Really, is not being like this isn't going to be a negative stream, guys. Don't worry, it's not going to be a negative stream. It's going to be it's hopefully a positive stream tonight. A little bit of upbeat, like my style. But you still need to ask those difficult questions, and I think you put yourself there in that different context where you've got Jonathan watching the game, I'm watching the game. Obviously, Nathan, you were doing other things, but you're still seeing commentary, you're still seeing statistical stuff, and I think that comes into reflection. If you can have two different points of view, but you're still getting the same conclusion. We are categorically terrible on all bases. We are terrible, but there is a possibility that things can be turned around. Like it's not a never say never conversation. I think some fans are naive to that, where they will not want to have that conversation. They'll immediately just want to pack up and run. No, I think you should get stuck into the conversation, and I think you should actually voice the concern. It doesn't always have to be one particular factor. It can be all factors in general. And I think the one factor that's important is there's no unity between what's being asked of the players and the players actually performing to the manager's expectation and the fans' expectation. I think that's a consistent factor all round that we've seen for numerous years now. But it's all about, can these players actually be convinced? And if these players don't want to be convinced, then it's a risk, me saying this, but take the risk against Copenhagen and play the players who you actually think are going to turn up trees for you, whether it be a win or lose. Because if the players aren't convinced enough to play for you in a league game, even though you still get a result, the Champions League is also going to define the future of the manager as well, especially if we don't get out of a group that we should be getting second place from. If these players are seemingly on that edge of either they want to prove a point, but what point are they trying to prove? Would you agree on any of that, lads? Would you agree, or would you have something different?
Yeah, I think Ten Hag is a bit betwixt and between at the minute. I think you look back at last season when he had this rootless streak and it was his way or the highway. I think he's kind of stuck in between now of that my way or the highway and actually getting results. And you touched on it there, Reece. He's kind of relying on guys who he doesn't necessarily trust wholeheartedly, or guys who don't really trust him wholeheartedly. And I think he's kind of swaying away from his own ethos, and that's a bad, and it's a slippery slope for a manager when they start slipping away from their core ethos. I mean, I touched on it before the Newcastle game last week that we brought Ten Hag in for a particular reason, to play a particular style of football, and that has been completely compromised at the expense of getting results. So I mean, I think, like you said, it can be changed very quickly. But it's just, if Ten Hag is willing to abandon this pragmatic approach that we've seen basically all season, where results are prioritised above all else, and he goes back to just, right, we're playing a style of football that I know we're going to get hit along the way, we're going to see results go against us, but we're going to have a long-term style of football and structure that I know that I can rely on, that I have players here that can trust me to play no matter what. Like, as it is, we're already getting very, very mixed results as it is, playing this pragmatic approach. It's not as if we're sitting top of the table playing absolute dire football, but we're like, look, the results are there. We're not. We're a bang average mid-table team that have fallen over the line against some of the Premier League's weakest teams this year. We could easily be in the bottom three now, and that's not even an exaggeration. And that's terrifying as a Man United fan. I mean, I watched Man United at the start of the 1920 season under Ollie, and it was bad. I looked at that team, they couldn't score, and I said, we are genuinely in a relegation battle. And then Bruno Fernandes came in January. It was the COVID season. We had a really late flurry, and we finished really well in the Champions League places ultimately.
I agree.
But I look at this team now, and it is just as bad as that season. I know we're picking up results, but we're kind of picking up by results by the law of average, in the sense that we just have got better players than those teams around us. So players like Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, Onana, they're going to step up and get results by default. But other than that, we are no better than the likes of Burnley and Sheffield United and Luton at the moment. I mean, even Luton are playing with more heart in football at the minute. So, like you said, look, I think it can be fixed quickly, but at the same time, I don't see it changing very quickly because I just think Ten Hag, he's just too stubborn of a man to change that quickly, I think.
I agree. Before I come to you, Nathan, because I want to get your opinion on this one as well. I want you to answer a question for me because I have my own opinion on this. This comes directly from Keane. Can we fully play his style with the current bodies available? And I know I touched on this, was it last week or the week before? I said we technically still can play this way with players that aren't like in a compromised situation where the players will actually want to play his way. If they don't want to play his way, then just move them on. Even if you can't sell them, just dismiss them. Just don't even acknowledge them. The players who want to play his way, who actually want to play his way, will play it. I think we technically can. It may not look the absolute best straight away, but I technically still think we can if the manager says this is the way we play. But I don't know about you, but Nathan, I was going to ask you about just to follow up to what I asked Jonathan just there. But yourself, like, what do you think on that as well?
I think the key words are available in that. With the players that aren't injured and actually available to start, I don't think so, and I think that's proven so far. I think he said in the pre-match conference to the Fulham game. I could be wrong, but he said that the philosophy has had to change slightly because of the lack of players available, and you can see that it's quite clear that his routines have had to change, and his plans have had to change because of the players that are injured. So with our fully fit team, we saw it last year. With a fully fit team, we played some maybe not well-beaten football, but we played good football and we were winning. That's all that mattered. So with the current bodies available, no, I don't think we can play his philosophy. So I think that's where it differs. Going back to what Jonathan's saying, he pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's just a case of if the players don't want to be playing, dismiss them, like you say, Reese. And I'm making a fully changed 11 in my situation for tomorrow. I'm changing all of them, and I'm putting out a shitload of youngsters.
I would make the decision where if certain players don't want to play for the manager, then just get rid. Like it's
straight
not
down
hard
to the under 18s, straight down to the reserves. Bring up a load of kids, see how they get on. It's an away day at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely, Jonathan. I'll get your response in a second. Then we're going to discuss one player, especially at the club. We're going to do that first of all. Alex is adamant, and he's putting his comment in that's twice tonight. And again, people put your comments in. Like your point of view, obviously your opinions are respected. Obviously, if you don't like the manager, that's completely fine. You don't have to like the manager. Like again, I'm not that type of person. Like make your own decisions. But Alex is saying Ten Hag sack him, get Simeone. John's immediately responded with his own comment saying we have to be patient, take it one game at a time. We need a good solid performance and it has to come tomorrow night or Luton. I believe it will come, but it must do better. Keane says Shaw Martinez being out for a long time has killed us. I would agree on Martinez. Shaw at times has been very hot and cold. I think that's one thing for him.
Going back to Shaw, I think he marries up with Rashford especially. I think when Rashford hasn't got Shaw, they haven't got anything. And then when Shaw hasn't got Rashford, it struggles. So I think that's where he's coming from on that one.
That's my biggest concern is that if it has to be those two players together, if they can't play with any other player, then that really is a concern. You know what I mean? As if they haven't actively tried. But he is very hot and cold when it comes to actually pressing up the field. He's very hot and cold. Alex is obviously he's watching us, and he's watching the Atletico Celtic game. He's saying 3-0 Atletico. I'm not going to say which team I will win because certain people like a certain team on this channel, so I'm not going to get involved on that. But he just wants good football, and to be fair, that can be under any manager as long as the players actually want to bother. And Keane's obviously saying Shaw's very underrated on the ball. He is. He's a good player. The problem is, and I think this is just a genuine thing about Luke Shaw, is he can be very hot and cold. If he was genuinely consistent, we wouldn't have a problem. Because he has got those crossing ability. He can go up the field. He is a good defender. He has got pace as well that we actually vitally need on that left-hand side for pushing up the field and obviously being a defensive transition. He does have that. It's just I want to see it more when he plays. Obviously, he's not available at the moment. When he plays, I want to see it constantly because other fullbacks are doing it consistently and for the extreme levels amount of time in a game where they will fight to the very tooth and nail. I want to see that from every player. That includes Shaw. to be fair. That includes shots, not just him. B-Tech Pepsi Max. Not the best kind. But we'll see. I need to get the real stuff back into my fridges. Alex is saying, I want to see... Okay. So he wants to see Varteta, fair, Klopp and Pep rattled Simeone as our man. So what you want to see then, you're not specifically looking for good football, which is fine. What you really want is a manager who's going to walk into the league and absolutely shithouse it and pull it off in beautiful fashion. Okay, I'm on board with the madness, but I don't think we're going to be in that position to bring somebody else in. Bear in mind, he is still the most expensive and richest in terms of contract-wise as a manager in world football. Simeone is that level of contract for a reason. And he was the best left-back in the league last year. He could reach them levels. Yeah, he was up there. He was certainly up there, left-back-wise. He was very good. I just want to see a constant. One player in particular, lads, that we're going to talk about, who prior to coming to United several years ago was built as one of the best English centre-backs. Depends on how you view him. For me, it's in a specific style that he's probably one of the best, but I'm not really going to get into that. Hot and cold player, was made captain instantly. To some fans, did not appreciate that, didn't like it. Since then, he's been consistent in the squad. He's got the best win percentage for a United player, by the way, at the moment. 17 wins from 19 games played, from which he started, which is an impressive thing. He is consistent for his national team. But is he now the main man in the defence that Ten Hag can actually depend on, which is a question I don't think many fans would have asked or wanted to give an answer for, and that's Harry Maguire. Nathan, what do you think on Maguire recently?
I think the only reason he's playing is because we haven't got the bodies available. And I think Erik Ten Hag has shot himself in the foot with that because he's actually been okay. He's been decent.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been amazing, let's be fair. He scored a goal against Copenhagen last week, pretty much overshadowed by a penalty save. But
it was.
You have to respect the fact that he has stayed. He has tried to play for his place, and he's got himself in a position where players have got injured around him and gone, all right, I'm going to step up. And yeah, he's been all right. I wasn't in the camp of the people that I would have made him captain way back then. I thought he was probably one of the better players at the time that we'd had. Yeah. And I wouldn't have made Bruno the captain back then because of the same reason he's captain now. He's a tantrum. He's always doing his toddler tantrums, and I can't handle that. So, yeah, I'm in the camp that he's only playing really because we're lacking in that area. But I'm not mad at him. He's been decent. He's been okay. I just want him to keep continuing and just not fall off like he did before.
Do you think that, obviously, one thing that I won't criticise him on, because it's something he actually does really well, is obviously balls from deep. He is very good at obviously getting the ball upfield into positions, and he's a good carrier of the ball. The problem is he's just awfully slow. But in terms of like how we actually can play, if you put a lot of pace around him, where he can generally be the slowest player in the team, do you think he generally does thrive though?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, it's important for the balls. Like we were the only reason we signed Onana, as far as I could work out, is to play away from the back, and to then have Maguire in that situation with his lack of pace, it did become an issue. But then, like you say, if you put a player with some pace behind, i.e. Martinez, has got a bit more speed about him. He can move around a little bit quicker. You put a player like that in, Lindelof, I mean, we saw what it was like last year. It was pretty dire at stages, wasn't it? And it's been pretty dire at stages now. I mean, I like Lindelof, I really do, but he's that partnership. I don't think actually, I was about to single Lindelof out then, but I don't think it's him. I think it's that particular partnership just doesn't work because they're both really lacking in speed and awareness. But we had Varane and Lindelof for a while and they seemed to gel pretty well. They seemed to do all right. And then we've had Maguire and Martinez, that seemed to work. So, like you say, you put a bit of pace alongside one of them, I think there's no issues there at all. And I do like the way that he does present himself with the ball at some stage. I mean, what did we have stages last year where he was up in the final third and we were like, what the fuck is he doing up there? Get back to where you're supposed to be. And we were having real panicky moments. But no, he's definitely carried himself pretty well going into this season, especially when we all thought he was going to West Ham. I think the whole world thought he was going there. But, you've got to give him some credit for that, absolutely.
I know you've said that, Keane, especially about Maguire being better than Lindelof. Me personally, I mean, I have different point of view. But again, I'm not one to say that in times he has been better than Lindelof, but there's been a lot of other times where Lindelof has absolutely mugged Maguire in terms of performance, and especially in key defence. Let's see what else is being said. So Julio is having his Morata love fest again, saying he scores again for Atletico. He ain't joining us in January when he goes back to Juventus, mate. Just a word of warning. Profile fits Ten Hag could work with as an alternative striker. Yeah, but it ain't gonna work. Just saying. Want to ask this though? Let's see. This question here by John, because this has actually been quite fit, and this has been coming up a lot. Varane. What do you think will happen with Varane? Considering the fact he has missed a few games, but I've seen a lot of people having controversial takes about this on social media, which is always funny. But in terms of just Varane, obviously he hasn't been available due to injury. There is talks about obviously he could be moving on the end of next season, or the end of this season, going into next summer. What do you guys think regarding Varane? Like, is he still an asset to the team, do you think, concerning his injuries, his injury record? I think it is best that we just move on from him.
I think he's 100% still an asset to the team when you look at the standard of defenders that we have. He's definitely lost the yard of pace, there's no doubt about that, but most players do when they enter their early 30s. But when you look at the standard of defenders we have, he's still the Rolls Royce defender of what's in that department, I think. Anyway, I still think that himself and Casemiro will be gone next summer. I just think the way this Saudi train is going now, when they're looking for these big name assets to really push the league, Rafael Varane and Casemiro are at that right age. They'll get themselves a nice big paycheck. I think United will be willing sellers for the right price. I think they could get back a decent amount of money on both players, even at their age, because the Saudis are just absolutely flouting it around. But there's definitely something not right there with Varane at the minute in terms of that dynamic with Ten Hag. I mean, as soon as Ten Hag came out after the City game and said he left Varane on the bench for tactical reasons, there was something not right there. You don't leave the likes of Rafael Varane on the bench when you're up against the likes of Erling Haaland and Bernardo Silva and the like, So again,
exactly.
it just kind of fits in with that whole dynamic that we've seen from minute one really this season, that there's just something not right in that changing room. Something has clicked there, something has changed, or maybe it hasn't changed. Maybe it's just the same group of players that are fed up of another manager who's actually laying down the law and they can't handle it. We just don't know. I mean, there's just such a shit show going on at the club at the minute. I mean, we can point at the Glazers. I know they're a massive, massive problem, but ultimately the Glazers aren't in that changing room every day. They're barely in the country, never mind in the dressing room. So, in my opinion, as someone who's played football, obviously not at that level, but I've played football. When you're just training with your teammates and stuff like that, everything else is an external noise. You don't even hear it. You're just concentrating on your football. These are professional players. So whatever's happening in that change room at the minute, okay, there is factors at play on the wider scale at the football club, which is at the Glazers' feet. But there is something much more closer to home going on there with Ten Hag, and something. Maybe he's changed something that we just don't know. But there's something not right there. And I think, look, obviously, Reece, you touched on his injury record is horrendous. I mean, I noticed that when he actually joined United, I looked at his record at Madrid. He played 300 games for Madrid, which on paper looks very impressive. But he's been at the club 10 years. So you break that down, it's 30 games a season for a centre-back at a club like Real Madrid, who go deep into all the European competition. They play an average of 60 games a season, and he was only playing half of those. So the red flags were there before he even set foot inside the club, really. So I'm not surprised that the injury record is even getting worse now, coming into his 30s. It's only going to get worse and worse from here on in. But like that, in my opinion, if he's fit, he starts. That's just how highly I rate him, I think, compared to the rest of the defenders there. No, Maguire is playing well. He's in a rich vein of form, but I still have Rafael Varane ahead of him every day of the week.
Yeah, I completely agree. This comment here by John from Spawn as well. John as well. Sorry, spot on. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both of Varane or Casemiro went in January to Saudi. If takeover occurs soon, then could get someone like Todibo in January if they get structure in time. It's possible, especially with the factor of who's actually coming in. But I don't think it'll be as easy and cheap as getting Todibo out of Nice. But it'll certainly be cheaper for us at least because we'll have that connection compared to if we didn't have that before. It would certainly go in our benefit. I wouldn't mind Todibo. I think he's a good centre half, good to go around. Me personally, I would go like after an Iheanacho, for example, like a left-footed centre back as well, because we've got too many right footers. I would try to get another left footer in there as fast as possible because we need that. Julio said if we get offered 120 mil for Casemiro and Varane in January, do we take it? Not writing them off for their starts of the season, whatnot, more just saying based on the number. I would try push it a bit. I would try get 30, 140. Because I don't think 120 is enough for the shit that we actually need to invest into. Personally, I don't think it's enough. I would try and dominate the conversation with the Saudis, and I would say, no, we want 130, 140. And they're dumb enough to do it anyway, because we've seen that. I mean, after all, they're dumb enough to bring in Neymar, so...
I'm biting
I could be good, I would
the arm
try.
off at the shoulder for 120. I'm taking that and running. I'm like, there you go. Yeah.
No, of course. I would just try and bounce
if you can
more.
get a young centre back or sort of central defensive midfielder for 60 to 100, and you still got 20 million to spare, I think I'd bite your arm off at the shoulder for that, for those two.
That's why I bounce for a bit more, because I'd spend it on 2 centre backs. Well, that's what I would do. I'd get that because I don't think what we've got is enough. Opposite spectrum now, and I have a feeling this is going to get a lot of comments as well from everybody in the chat. Anthony. Okay. Is this guy talented? Yes. But is he consistent? Absolutely not. So, in terms of Anthony right now, performance-wise, lads, is it time to drop him, or is it even pointless having that conversation? Jonathan, I'll go to you first on that.
I think it's gone beyond the point to drop him. I think this has been one of the damaging things for Ten Hag in the changing room. I mean, we've seen a lot of leagues coming out about favouritism, and this is the absolute red flag in the room. It's just Anthony's performances since he started off relatively well. He got injured just before the World Cup, came back. It took him a while to get back, and he wasn't horrendous last season. He had bits and bobs. At times he was actually looked really good. In other games he looked absolutely horrendous. But look, you kind of cut him some slack. He was a young 22-year-old coming into one of the biggest football clubs in the world, new country, fair enough. But this season he's absolutely fallen off a cliff, and the problem is that Ten Hag doesn't seem to treat him with the same ruthlessness as he does other players. I mean, I think this is definitely one of the, like at the comment there, I think this is definitely one of the reasons why Jadon Sancho came out with that tweet that said, people understand what's going on behind the scenes. And look, I don't agree with that. That's something that still should be dealt with in private. I don't agree with how he did it, but I still do sympathise in probably how he's feeling as a young man of a similar age to Anthony. He's a much more experienced international. When you look at Jadon Sancho, I think he's proven himself as a much higher quality footballer in both of their short careers. I think Jadon Sancho has proved himself as a better footballer overall. But I think Ten Hag looks at Anthony as someone he has to stick with now, because he was the one that pushed the club to fork out about 85 odd million quid for him, so he kind of has to stick with him now. And I feel like Anthony is going to become the Marouane Fellaini of David Moyes. He's going to be the rod that people beat Ten Hag's back with time and time and time again. And I touched on one of the shows at the end of last season. I said it, that I don't understand why the likes of history doesn't get more football on the right wing when you look at the quality of Anthony's performances, because
agreed.
I know he didn't get a direct assist on Saturday, but his work rate causes so much issues, and it's just such a weak position for us overall in terms of our depth there. I just don't get why the likes of Pellistri doesn't get more football, because he seems to start a game and then you don't see him for like a month or 6 weeks, then he's thrown on for 5 minutes, makes an impact, and then he's gone again. And I actually think that this could be something that's really undermining Ten Hag in the change room at the minute.
The irony as well is you talk about like he can start a game that he doesn't play for like a month, like 6 weeks or something, and then he'll show up for the 5 minutes. But the funny thing is, though, is when he comes on for that 5-10 minutes, he's immediately our best player.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
doesn't matter who's fresh legs or who's tired. He immediately is our best player because he's the only one that actually gives a damn. He's the
Yeah.
only one that tries.
Yeah.
Raja, I've mentioned Pedro Gonçalves numerous times. It ain't gonna happen. I would take him, but it's not gonna happen. Keane's obviously mentioned Pedro Neto. I know he likes him as well. Not a bad choice, but that's not going to happen now, unfortunately. I think Ahmad is a name that we would all agree on, but even himself, he's only just come back into training. Are we going to see him in a league game soon or a cup game? Unlikely, but he's another one where you've spent big money on him to a degree. He has to be given an opportunity to show himself because you can't spend 37 million on a teenager and then not use him. That is an absolute waste. You know what I mean? Like, that is a complete waste.
Yeah, and he did quite well at Sunderland last year. I know it was a league below, but like he seems to have that work rate. He has something different, I think, to what any of the other riggers of the team have. He offers something different, you know. And I was looking forward to seeing him and how he adapted this season. But look, he got that unfortunate injury in pre-season, like, and I wouldn't be confident about him being a long-term solution. But in terms of where we are at the minute, I definitely think he could improve us and elevate us to a different level.
Especially for the ready-made options, well, where he will look to find a he will try to find a killer through ball into the final third, or he'll try to get a goal. He's unlike Anthony, who I wish he would use it more, but I think he's too afraid to. He will use both feet to take a player on.
Yeah.
If Anthony isn't going to take a player on with his right foot, then put him on the left wing. Like, it's quite simple. Like, it's either you put him on the left wing or you don't. Keane's the one, Rajat. Keane's the one that's using the Devil's Advocate podcast account. He's on the channel. Well, it's his channel, to be fair. So that's who Keane is. Nathan, what about you regarding Anthony, mate? In terms of, like, as a whole, he had an amazing moment last year. Like, the goal against Arsenal, especially. Moments where he was taking on defenders. The goal against City was arguably better. But just in general, yeah, you wish, Keane. The whole situation itself, though, since then, it has been downhill, completely downhill. I think it's right with Jonathan. I agree in terms of favoritism. The money, obviously, he spent, he has to stick with him as well, but it's becoming a massive problem. Now, what are you thinking on Anthony in terms of dropping him, or is it just similar to what I asked Jonathan? Is it a pointless conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a pointless conversation in the fact that we know Erik ten Hag is so stubborn, and like you say, he has to stick by him. He has to trust that he's made the right decision, whether he thinks it's right or not. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does start tomorrow. But I'll go back to what I said earlier. I'm replacing the whole starting 11, so I would have dropped him already at this point. Like Jonathan said, the work rate is just not there. He's really lacking in ability at the minute. There might be an element of there may still be some off the field stuff going on with him in the minute. You know, we had that sort of thing going on at the start of the season where we had him away. So there may be still parts of that still running through his mind. But at the end of the day, if he needs more time off, he should be having that more time off to deal with whatever it is going on off the pitch. If it is just on the pitch matters and it is just struggling with the idea of putting any ability in, and like you say, we had some really good moments from him last year. He had some really, really impressive moments, but it's just not really materialised, and it's just really slowed down, and it just lack of work rate and lack of ability.
Well, there is obviously rumours, of the club looking to make a swap deal between, like, 20 million plus Anthony on loan to Flamengo, and then we take Gabriel Barbosa on, as an experienced striker. Now, I've seen Barbosa play for Inter, and he was still hyped up then as one of the next big things for Brazilian football, and he struggled. Like, he struggled for Inter. In an Inter Milan side, they weren't defensive. That was an attack-minded Inter Milan side. Slightly less attack as what they've got at the moment, but they were still an attack-minded side. They weren't a traditional Inter Milan side, and he didn't work. So, I pose the question, if it gets to January, would you still take that deal? Or would you still pass up and be like, if we're going to have to get rid of him, it's not by a loan, we have to try and sell him, whether Ten Hag likes it or not?
I don't know who you'd sell him to. I mean, I think your best bet would be a loan, where we kind of subsidise most of his wages, as we do most of the time. I think I was talking to a mate of mine the other day, and you're like, you literally couldn't give him back to Ajax if you wanted at this point. You know, his stock is just so low. I think there is, like, to be fair to him, at 23 years of age, I think there is a decent footballer in there. I mean, he does have the talent. The raw talent is there. I think the question is, does he have the raw talent that's going to end up with him being good enough for a team like Man United? I don't think he is. I think he could be a very good player for the likes of a West Ham or someone like that, where the consistency isn't expected of him. But in terms of his standard of a club at Man United, I don't ever see him fulfilling that potential and becoming a good enough player to be starting on that right wing in a title winning or a Champions League winning side. I just don't see it at all.
Is he the biggest? This is a question that's been posed to several players, but considering how long he's been here now, just yourselves, yes or no, is he the biggest flop in Man United? History-wise, is he Man United's biggest ever flop?
It's hard to say because he hasn't been here that long, but in terms of pound for pound value, in terms of transfer fee and everything at the moment, yes, I think so.
Nathan?
Di Maria.
You're still going Di Maria. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I know he's one that a lot of people would still use, and obviously some would say Alexis Sanchez. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's one. Obviously, it didn't work, but I wouldn't call him an expensive flop. I just call him an outright flop. But that's for another day. Want to bring this up for everybody in the chat and also that's watching, and for you guys, because we're going to talk on this about a couple of minutes, and then we'll talk. Then we'll move on to the game. This. Yeah. Not gonna lie, that would be some boxing match. It might be more entertaining than any other content creating boxing match I've seen. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to pay to watch it, but if it's for free, I would watch it. But I just want to get your opinion, guys, on the whole situation between Rashford and Goldbridge. I mean, I only seen it a couple of days ago after I got sent a few of these tweets, and I seen a few in the group chat. I just didn't want to respond because I was like, I don't even know what to expect or what to say. But if you're calling out a player and to be fair, they have directly and indirectly called out Rashford using their thumbnail for their stream they did, questioning his future. And then obviously, was it Rashford or was it Rashford's? Whoever's managing the account has responded to it. Either way, it's got a lot of media attention across the board, and it's quite interesting when you look from a fan perspective. Like, a player's coming, obviously defend themselves, but you've also got the perspective of Sky Sports, for example, did an article. Then again, the Sky Sports is just like the Daily Mail, shite. But they put up an article saying, should Man United fan channels like this lose their privileges? And that's also included in tonight's agenda, like that we're going to talk about. Obviously, should the United Stand lose their privileges about media? But the thing is, and this is something I want to ask you guys, is should it be they lose their privileges, or should it just be the individual that was responsible, that actually made the actual allegations themselves or questioning this? I just want to get your point of view on that. Do you go the whole board or just the one? How would you do it? Because again, it's like, is it wrong to punish? Like, again, I don't watch that. I refuse to watch that stuff anyway. But if it's one person who's making the issue, should it just be the one person or the whole channel in general? I just want to get your perspective on that.
I think the whole channel in general, because you're representing an organization at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it's an individual journalist, if that's what you want to call it. But I think, of course, it should be the whole organization, in my opinion. Anyway, I did touch it on a previous show. I think we've got to be very careful when it comes to that whole cutting the media out of conferences and stuff like that, because you don't want to create that kind of dictatorship vibe where you speak out against the club and you're gone, because we've seen the Glazers trying to do that. Now, I'm not that fan channel's biggest fan, quite the opposite, or the host of it at all. I just don't have any time for it. I'm like yourself, Reece. I don't bother listening to it anymore. But at the same time,
it's not for me.
like it was calling out Marcus Rashford in a way that was probably unfair in terms of questioning his future and his commitment. But at the same time, when I did see it, I was kind of like, did Marcus Rashford really have to respond? Because all you're doing is giving that kind of fan channel fans for the flame. That's all it was. And
Yeah.
there was a big, massive response then, a 5-minute video to respond that garnered more clicks. And a little bit like TalkSport, channels like that are just living for the negative press. And I think if it was Marcus Rashford himself who did respond directly and it wasn't a management team, I think it's kind of proves how much pressure that dressing room was under at the minute, and particularly Marcus Rashford, that he had to lash out like that. I mean, you would not have seen that happen under Fergie at all. Absolutely not, would not have happened. But I probably think I'm not Goldbridge's biggest fan. I'm not defending him in any way, shape, or form. Quite the opposite.
Of course.
But I don't really see a reason why Rashford had to respond, because I mean, any Man United fan with a brain knew that that was complete bullshit that was coming out of that channel anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's been blown out of proportion, but that's what that fan channel loves. So I mean, it was a win-win for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their viewers wise, like in terms of numbers, like for what they got, but you know, like that's what they were gonna get it. Like they know full well that them, like numbers wise, they're gonna get the views, they're gonna get the attention, and it is a reflection of them. Like John saying, "Fun Goldilocks said Rashford was doing it for clicks." How ironic. Julio said that Goldbridge tried to justify it. There's a difference between creating clickbait titles that raises unnecessary questions and criticism of a player going out or playing badly. True. And then Keane says Goldbridge needs to be held accountable for his actions. Look at the abuse he gave Ollie. Yeah, I think the one thing is though is I think this is something that we can all pretty much see from Goldbridge when he gets clipped anywhere and it gets put all over social media, whether you follow the accounts or not. I mean, I have every bloody one of the accounts blocked, and yet he still appears on my timeline. The one thing that he doesn't seem to be afraid to do is make those comments, because he knows that he's not going to get, even if he gets challenged on it, it's not going to make a difference. You know what I mean? Like, he's still going to be out there getting numbers. He's still going to be out there making money. Like, that's the worst thing. This guy is, like, he is sorted. Like he is in that position where he can say anything he wants. Like, he could say tomorrow, hypothetically, just shut down Old Trafford. Like, just completely destroy it, start fresh, and then build something new. Now, whether he actually, I know a lot of people actually had that opinion anyway, saying a new stadium might actually be better for the club anyway, but he would do it in a different way where it sounds more of tarnishing a legacy and tarnishing a history than actually the benefit side. Is more about destruction rather than resurrection and restoration. It's complete different. Alex is saying TalkSport think Goldmoan is Man United. TalkSport can't tell the difference between a football and a rugby ball, because half the time they speak shite. Look at Gabriel Bonglahor. Hasn't said a bloody good bit of football. Like, doesn't know, speak any bit of football. Never could. And he thinks he made it as a footballer. He was wank. Bonglahor was a wank footballer. I'm surprised he actually made money. Rashford is a snowflake to be even answering back to the United stand. Should be letting his football do the talking now, not his mouth. Interesting comment there. Nathan, what do you think?
I think anything that makes Goldbridge look like a prick is good enough for me, to be honest. I hate the bloke. I think he's got this complete agenda against...
And he is, Trevor.
He's just an absolute despisable person, and the fact that he has got a job at that ridiculous radio station is a joke as well. I don't disparage the fact that Rashford or his possibly his agents that were controlling the account may have reacted to it.
They did that as well.
On the other hand, Jonathan's got it absolutely spot on. That's exactly what they were aiming to do. That's exactly, they were trying to get a reaction.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they've got. And now they've had their subscribers and probably their followers and views boosted by it. And I think we're all trying. Alex is bang on there. I think we're all trying to get banned by him by abusing him so much on there. Because
what did you get banned for? Like, I got to ask. What did you get banned for?
Yeah, Whatever you did, we'll try it as well. See if we can do it as well. Because even when we block the fucking account, we still have it pop up on our fucking feed.
I'm still proud of I'm still proud of how I got banned on Twitter, but not banned, but like blocked by McAteer a couple of years ago because I just kept calling him bounce trigger, and I just put his face on the body of Tigger with 2 guns. So obviously like trigger fingers, well bounce trigger. So I done that, and then he went absolute nuts, and I was like, huh, win. Let's see. Trevor saying Goldbridge thinking he's on the overlap with his United Stand tours, like they're actually famous. His name is not even Mark Goldbridge. That is very true. Unfortunately, me being a family that has Italian heritage and he has an Italian name pisses me off even more. Like that link there, like is why I don't associate with Goldbridge. Wankstein. Ask him why he left the police. I'm not getting involved in that. Yeah, he does avoid that question though a lot.
I think it's time to move on, Reese.
It is. We've had enough fun. Let's talk some football. Reese is banned from all platforms except Jan James channels. Fuck off. Fuck off. For the last time, I hate Dan James. Moving on. Right. Copenhagen tomorrow. So discuss the game, but one thing that's come out and I think is very interesting, I know we spoke about it off air, but I think Jonathan, you agreed on it as well, is Copenhagen players have come out and said that they are favourites for tomorrow, for the game against us as well, especially at their ground. Very, very important, that comment. What do you think? Right or wrong?
I think 100% right that they think that, whether it's fact or not. But I mean, what have we done in recent history to prove them otherwise? I mean, they outplayed us for most of the game in the first half. In the home tie, they could have been a couple of goals up. We played better in the second half, but at the same time, it took again a moment's FC Harry Maguire goal to actually get the 3 points. And I thought they were very good, and they should have got a point out of the game, but for that Onana save at the end. And I said this on a previous show as well. I think we're kind of floating through since Alex Ferguson left, thinking that we have a divine right to win Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues and Cups because we're Manchester United. Van Gaal made a very good point when he took over at Man United. He was asked for Man United, the biggest football club in the world. And he said no. Why? Because they'd finished 8th the previous season under David Moyes. As a football club, you're only as good as your last achievement. Our last achievement was a League Cup win, which we would have laughed at 10 years ago under Alex Ferguson. That was the Mickey Mouse Trophy under us. So we've got to start proving that we're Man United again. We can't just have this divine right that we're Man United. We have a right to beat you because you're Copenhagen. If Copenhagen beat us tomorrow night, which is a high likability, then it'll be because they've worked harder and played better football than us, which is pretty easy at the moment. So I would definitely have Copenhagen as favourites tomorrow, going into a home tie in front of their fans. It's never easy going to Scandinavia for a game because they make it tough for you. They make it hard for you. It'll probably be cold over there. It won't be easy. And I think they've every right to believe they're favourites. Why not? I mean, we've no divine right to come out and say we're favourites, I don't think. I think they've done more to back up that title than us, certainly from what we saw the last day out anyway.
Absolutely. Nathan, you?
Yeah, bang on, really. I wouldn't be surprised if we... It goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know who's made the plane. I don't know who's travelled with the match, with the squad. I assume it's all the usual suspects. But I would have loved to have seen a completely different starting 11. But I just think it's going to be the same again. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of the blocks fighting, because it is a tough country to go to. They probably are the favourites in form-wise. And like we said, we managed to beat them at home, but didn't really mean anything.
I think we can see where Alex's allegiance lies. It's going to be any result. It's Simeone beat them this, beat
Alex
them
has
that.
got a full Simeone hard-on going on.
I mean, to be fair, I like Simeone, but this is just madness. I mean, I gotta respect the hustle. You know what I mean? I gotta respect it. You know, when you look at the performance tomorrow, though, judging by recent performances for ourselves, we may be favourites by name, but we are not favourites by performance. Julio,
no,
can you stop? Julio, you really have an obsession for Lukaku, mate. If that's what you're into, that's fine, but don't bring my name into it. That's no my style, mate. But in terms of the actual situation, we ain't favourites for this game. We are by name, but we're definitely not by performance, because right now, performance-wise, we fluked a win against them. We did. It was a much-needed win, because we really did need it after getting absolutely ruined by Galatasaray, ruined by Bayern. The result may look different by the scoreline, but the performance definitely speaks volumes. We did get ruined. Aside from Bayern, we should be beating Galatasaray in Copenhagen home and away. We should be. We should be walking out of this group with at least 12 points. The only team that's going to definitely finish above us more points is Bayern. Stronger team, better managed. Resource-wise, it's more flood down as well. You can see the difference. But we should be doing better against the likes of Copenhagen and Galatasaray. I think we really have to be on the front foot. We have to go there and put it this way, we have to actually go to Copenhagen and actually not just play good football, we have to dominate the ball. We actually have to effectively take the piss out of them. Because if they go tomorrow and they come into this game and they play the same way they did at Old Trafford, they'll get a point this time, because their crowd will totally back them up this time. I think the only difference is, the only thing is, though, is they had the opposite angle, is fans-wise, our fans just egged our players on a little bit more, got behind them a bit. That certainly helped. Atmosphere can also improve a player, especially if they feel believed in. I think tomorrow it's going to be massive for them in front of their own fans, where if they play the same way, they'll have that majority. The players will feel a little bit enveloped by it. I think that's something that could come down to it. How would you guys set up tomorrow? Obviously, Nathan, I'm expecting 11 that's absolutely crazy. So I'm looking forward to coming to that. But Jonathan, just for yourself, like, what would you expect to see tomorrow? And score prediction wise, what you think? What, be as bold or as crazy as you want. I've already seen that against Newcastle.
Well, I'm a bit like Nathan. I would have liked to seen a few more bolder choices going on the playing over, but I did see the squad that travels, so I mean I can't be too expansive in what I expect tomorrow night. But I think what we're going to see is something very similar to what we saw against Fulham at the weekend. I think you'll see that solid, well, I say solid, mildly 4-2-3-1 formation that he seems to have kind of stuck with now because of this pragmatic approach he's going for. I'd like to see a more dynamic 4-3-3 myself personally, but I think it'll be pretty much similar. I think you'll see Onana in goals, Wan-Bissaka again, who I'm delighted to see back. I think Wan-Bissaka's made a big difference, in fairness to him, since he came back. He's been one of the most improved players since Ten Hag took over, in fairness to him. I think you might see Varane get in tomorrow night, purely because I think Maguire was absolutely out on his feet at the weekend, and I think he was a bit concussed. He has travelled, but I don't know how fit he actually is. I think you may see Evans play on the left-hand side, because he has done pretty well on that left-hand side of the fence. I think he's the most solid on that left-hand side of the fence, more solid than Victor Lindelof. I'd like to see Reguilon come in. I think Dallow's played a lot of football, and I've been impressed with Reguilon since he signed, and he gives us that balanced left foot on the left-hand side as well. So I would like to see him come in. I'd like to see Amrabat and Mount get a start, but I don't think they will. I think you're going to see McTominay and Eriksen again, purely because of that pivot of defensive solidity, if you want to call it that, with McTominay and that creativity of Eriksen. But I think it's going to be very exposed, because there's very little legs there at all. I think the likes of Varane and Evans, if they do start, are going to be very exposed in that centre-back positions. In terms of out wide, I think he'll go with Bruno on the right. I don't think he'll start Anthony. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll start Pellistri. I'd like to see Pellistri start, but I don't think he will. I think he'll go with Bruno on the right. I think he'll go Rashford on the left. Højlund up top, and then in the 10, I think you may see Mason Mount come in there. I think you might see him come in there tomorrow for a start. I think he needs to start. I mean, you're getting to a point now where you're like, why did you even sign him? I mean, he needs some time to bed in and get a consistent run of games and actually start bedding in and getting to know his teammates. I'm just really disappointed that Kobe Mainoo was playing for the under-19s tomorrow in the UEFA Youth League. I think it's absolutely wasted. I don't know how many reserve games he needs to play to get some sort of fitness. So I mean, he's 18 years, for God's sake. I mean, he shouldn't need many games at all to get up to match sharpness. And when you look at the standard of our fitness this season, it'd take a jog around the pitch and take you about an hour to get around the pitch, and you'd still be fitter than most of the guys in that team at the minute. So I would have liked to have seen him play, but obviously we're not going to see him now tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm going to say as well, I second what Jonathan said about Reguilon. I think Reguilon's actually better than he is. I mean, funnily enough, Reguilon's only better as a fullback defensively because of funnily a manager that Alex constantly keeps mentioning in the chat, which is a fact. Just like a fullback that plays for Newcastle, funnily enough, can defend because he plays for a manager that Alex keeps mentioning. So that's something that a certain manager can do. You know what I mean? He can teach defenders how to defend. So we'll see where that goes. Nathan, what about yourself? What are you thinking? What's your scrapped 1 to 11 for tomorrow, and what's your score prediction?
What I would love to see is a completely overhauled 11, but I think what Keane put in the chat earlier, I think that's probably likely to be it, and probably what I would go with.
Yeah,
I would like to see people like I would love to. I want to see this other goalkeeper. Give Onana a rest. I just want to see what this other guy's like. I've never heard of him before he signed. I've never seen him play, and we've said about it in the past. He needs to get minutes because when Onana goes to the Africa Cup of Nations, this goalkeeper is going to come straight in, and we might have some really big issues. So it'd be nice to see him get some minutes. To be honest, I would have loved to have seen Kobe Mainoo play tomorrow. I think it would have an opportunity to see him would have been great. But yeah, I think it's a real disappointment that he's playing in the youth cup, whatever it is.
Yeah, the UEFA Youth League. I wouldn't have minded that myself. So Trevor saying Reguilon is not a defender. We need defenders as we're going to be under pressure. He can defend. I think the best thing for him though is I think he's more of a wing back than a full back. To be fair, I think he is better suited.
Has got a free pass at the minute because he knows he's only there to fill a gap, and I think he's actually been okay. He hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been amazing, but he's been all right, and that's all we needed. He
was also for like 3-4 games in a row. He was actually one of our better players as well. In terms of actually what he was asked to do, he's one of our better players. So we can't ignore that. You shouldn't ignore that. Alex is saying 4-4-2, Rashford, Højlund up front. Okay. Trevor's saying left outside the stadium, Marcus Rashford. Okay. Trevor's saying Rashford going on the plane only proves he was dropped. Well, yeah. Nobody gets a free pass. Well, yeah. Some do. Some do for the right reasons. Garnacho for the left wing. Yeah. To be fair, I wouldn't mind that myself. In a different way, I wouldn't mind Garnacho playing. Gives him a chance in the Champions League as well. Gives him some minutes. Keane's going 1-0 for his score prediction. To be fair, I'm just going to go 2-1 and bail. I'm just going to say 2-1 and we'll see what happens. So 2-1 United, and hopefully we get a result. But realistically, we shouldn't be. This is one where we shouldn't fanny about. Get this game over and done with as quickly as we can. Hopefully we start well because we actually started well against Fulham as well. Obviously, Jonathan mentioned the goal that was ruled out. Like that did obviously take away from us. I would play. To be fair, if you're playing with wingers, I wouldn't mind Rashford being up front on his own, and you bring Højlund on the second half. I wouldn't mind that myself. I think Rashford's actually okay in these types of games as a striker, and you can put wingers around him, and that still works. And then second half, change it around. Mount needs to start. I agree on that one. Mount definitely deserves a chance to at least start games, but we'll see. But that, in less than an hour, was your preview. So, guys, thank you all for watching. Really do appreciate it. There is a reaction show tomorrow. Hammer's hosting, I believe. So enjoy that. We'll see how it goes. It'll be chaotic, depending on the result. We'll see how it goes. But guys, before we go, get your socials out there, and we will bounce out here. I guess not. They've went silent. How shocking is that? They've went silent. Ah well. I'm only kidding.
What did you say?
Unless
I didn't hear what you said.
Did I go there? Was that me? Jesus. I thought that was me there. Sorry. Have I completely gone silent?
No, you're good now.
Yeah, I can hear you now, mate.
Oh, I was going to say, like, as we're bouncing out here, guys, just get your socials and then we'll disappear.
Oh yeah, mine's just below at Snooker America.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
I don't use mine very much. Yeah, I'm at Nate Dales, but you're more than welcome to abuse me there if you like. I don't use it very much, but I'll take it.
If you're into that, Go for it. He welcomes it. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe to the channel. Bye for now.